Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Happiest Mommy You Know, Why Putting Your Kids First is the Last Thing You Should Do, by Genevieve Shaw Brown. Narrated by Genevieve Shaw Brown. Introduction. Why putting yourself first sometimes is actually the best thing you can do for your kids. You know the drill, moms. We make perfectly frosted cupcakes for our kids' classroom, then scarf one down on the way to school because we forgot to eat breakfast ourselves. Our children are always beautifully decked out in coordinated clothes while we live in black workout pants. We take our little ones to the doctor every time they have the sniffles, but we haven't scheduled a checkup in 2 years. Sound familiar? Yeah, to me as well. Heck, this was me until recently. I'm the one who was so intent on doing this mom thing right that I began to lose sight of everything that made me, me. But I'll tell you who I am these days. I'm the mom who finally managed to lose those last pounds of pregnancy weight after years of trying and failing. I'm the one who goes on vacation with my husband, sans kids. I'm the one who found time to meet up with my best friend for a drink last week. And you know what? I'm a lot happier and a better mom for it. Being a better mother, after all, was the goal all along. The secret is rather simple. I stopped putting my kids first every second of every day. I looked at how well I treated them and how poorly I treated myself, and I wondered, what would happen if I lavished myself with the same kind of love and care that I give to them? Does that sound like sacrilege? I used to think so too. It was a long road to get here. There were some bumps and missteps along the way, a few surprises too. But today life is a lot saner, a lot smoother, and yes, a lot happier now that I've learned one simple secret. Treat yourself as well as you treat your kids. That's it. I'm not telling you to neglect your kids. Instead, think about yourself for a change. Prioritize your own needs, eating well, getting enough sleep, spending time with your partner and your friends, even starting a new hobby. Be a little, gasp, selfish in the name of ultimately being a better mom. For once, treat yourself with the same care and love you give to your kids every day. That's what I learned how to do in a long, painful, sometimes funny process, which I'll outline for you in this book. It wasn't always pretty, but it sure has yielded great rewards since I started this little experiment with my own family. Oh yeah, family, because that's what this is all about, right? Let me get this out of the way right now. I love my kids more than anything in the world, rivaled perhaps only by the adoration I feel for my husband. We all love our families and want to do everything for them. We cook them nutritious meals. We set up carefully curated play dates and wonderfully diverse extracurricular activities. We dress them in crisp, carefully laundered, beautifully made outfits. We go to extraordinary measures to be sure they get a good night's sleep. And that's all wonderful. Good for us. Pats on the back all around. But here's the thing. When your kid is eating free-range organic food and you're scarfing down fast food in the car, or your child is on the second play date of the weekend and you haven't seen your best friend for 2 months, something is dangerously out of whack. We need to take back some of our power, some of our agency, some of our time, and stop putting our loved ones' needs before ours at every opportunity. Moms, listen to this. Putting your kids first is the last thing you should do. Instead, try gifting yourself a little of the care, attention, and love you so generously give to your family every day. Read on and I'll tell you why, and how this revolutionary philosophy worked wonders on my health, my marriage, my friendships, my happiness, and most importantly, ultimately made me a better mom. I've started listening to what I need again. I'm here to tell you the secret to being the happiest mom you know, or even just, happier, isn't perfection. Far from it. It's a surprisingly simple, slightly counterintuitive tip I learned the hard way. Putting yourself first sometimes is actually the best thing you can do for your kids. I did it. I'll show you how. You can do it too. Chapter 1. Holy crap, I eat like crap. Feed yourself as you want to feed your kids. It was about 5 a.m. My husband, 3-year-old daughter, and 14-month-old son were still fast asleep in our New York City apartment. I had risen earlier than they, as was the typical drill, to get myself ready for work. Part of that routine included preparing the food that the children would eat throughout the day until I returned home in time to make them dinner that evening. I didn't mind the early morning so much. Truth be told, I'd never been one to sleep in. Even before the kids, it wasn't uncommon for me to get up a little early to go for a run or enjoy a leisurely cup of coffee before heading off to work. Though now that I was a mom, those small luxuries were a thing of the distant past. So I wasn't exactly prepared for the new wake-up time that having kids imposed on my schedule. 6:30, even 6 would be okay. But there's something ungodly about 5. At 5 in the morning, the light from the refrigerator is so bright, it feels like an interrogation every single day. It's not that my youngest, Will, woke up at 5, but he is an early riser, almost always before 6 when he was younger. And so 5 a.m. became my wake-up time in order to do everything that needed to be done before going into full-fledged mommy duty, which mostly consisted of meal prep, cooking the meals the kids would eat while I was at work, and then getting things ready for the dinner that would be served shortly after I arrived home in the evening. The thought of me cooking, never mind cooking at 5 a.m., pajama-clad and bleary-eyed, would be laughable to most of my friends. One of my friends' favorite stories about me was when, already a fully grown adult with my own apartment, I had to ask what a ramekin was when a recipe I was attempting called for this particular piece of cookware, the barefoot Contessa I'm not. The truth is, it was only since having kids that I even gave a second thought to what I was eating. Up until my late 20s, I was always on the slim side, despite eating mostly crap. By crap, I mean takeout most nights, few vegetables, and a preference for food dripping with cheese. Yeah, I know, I hate the 20-something me too. Despite a diet more suited to a sumo wrestler than a busy journalist, I was declared to be in perfect health by every doctor I ever had the infrequent occasion to visit. Fast forward many years of marriage and one baby, then 2, and I found myself in an average to most but borderline unacceptable by New York City standards body. Not that I was sweating it exactly, but at some point after the birth of my second child, I had a realization. Holy crap, I eat like crap. The realization, however, did little to change my habits. Sure, I'd occasionally wake up on Monday and declare this to be the week of salads, only to have my resolution fizzle by the time I passed the latest tempting food truck parked outside my office on Tuesday at lunch. Mostly, I had no willpower when it came to what I considered to be my last remaining vice, food. And to tell you the truth, it didn't bother me that much. I had a slightly superior mindset because I didn't smoke, use drugs, drink to excess, and was, in most regards, a model citizen. I guess I believed that I deserved to eat what I wanted. Never mind that all that crap food was starting to make me feel like a crap person, something that would take me a long time to understand. At the time Will began to eat solid foods, I became determined not to pass along my less than optimal approach to eating. You see, I was harboring a shameful secret. I'd already failed once. My 3-year-old, Addie, was a picky eater. And judging by the Facebook groups of New York City moms I belonged to, having a 3-year-old who ate little aside from fruit, yogurt, peanut butter sandwiches, and plain pasta was akin to child abuse. I could not fail again. I started reading a lot about proper nutrition for babies, scouring the internet for baby recipe inspiration. For guidance, I turned to sites like Weelicious and Picky Palette, where I found a veritable wonderland of clever ways to hide vegetables in food or make it so adorable that my kids couldn't help but pop it in their mouths. Armed with ideas for scrambled egg and broccoli cups and cauliflower mashed potatoes, mapo tofu and sautéed baby bok choy, I spent my early morning hours stirring couscous on the stovetop, baking sweet potatoes in the oven, dicing up rotisserie chicken, and creating fruit and vegetable smoothies that tasted sweet enough from the fruit to be appealing, but did not completely mask the vegetable taste, so as not to raise a child who did not welcome vegetables onto his plate at every meal. You know the drill. It would be easy enough to lose oneself completely in the information, recipes, planning, apps, mommy groups, and more that are dedicated to kids' nutrition. But time is one thing I'm perennially short on. I have a full-time job at ABC News, where I'm responsible for leading its online lifestyle coverage. It's a big job, one I worked for years to attain, and it keeps me pretty busy. Luckily, since I cover a fair amount of parenting topics in my reporting job, there's some overlap in the research I do for my kids and the background info I seek for my stories. So, if I got busted looking at Weelicious recipes at the office, it could easily be assumed it had something to do with an article I was researching. That morning, I arrived at my desk worried about the possible long-term ramifications of Will's refusal to eat more than 2 bites of his eggs. Was he getting enough protein? Toddlers really need protein, right? In between scanning the lifestyle stories and pitches that might possibly make the day's list of coverage, I start Googling. Egg substitutes for kids who don't like eggs. Is dislike for eggs a sign of an egg allergy? Alternative protein options for toddler breakfast. How to make your toddler eat eggs. This is silly, I tell myself. Get a grip. I try to put eggs out of my mind, refocus my attention, and prepare to start my workday. But the worry about the eggs, maybe he was full by the time we got around to the eggs, nags at me as I try to focus on the task at hand. I'm responsible for choosing, assigning, and crafting the ABC News lifestyle stories that everyone will be talking about tomorrow. This is a big job. I need to concentrate, and yet, eggs. All this thinking about breakfast food caused me to glance at the clock and realize it's 9:58. I'm starving. Did I eat breakfast this morning? Nope. There's not enough time to get to the ABC cafeteria. It closes at 10 for breakfast to get my own eggs. None of my coworkers seem to have this daily issue of not getting to the cafeteria on time to get their breakfast. Then again, most of them don't have kids. As I looked around the newsroom, I found eggs galore, oatmeal, pancakes, and yogurt. Yogurt! I packed one this morning. I reached into my bag and no yogurt. I left it on the counter in the kitchen. Back to work, my stomach empty save the 2 cups of coffee and cup of water. No matter, I'll wait for lunch. And then by 11:30, when I was so hungry I could no longer think straight, I headed to the cafeteria, now reopened, and walked around aimlessly looking for something to eat. But time was ticking and the emails were coming in faster than I could answer them, so I headed to the shortest line I saw. Comfort food. Chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes. Looks like food kids would love, I thought. I guess that's why it's called comfort food. It reminds us of childhood. I thought about Will, probably at this moment, sitting down in his high chair, eating organic turkey meatballs filled with veggies, a small side of couscous, and some sliced fruit for dessert. Lucky kid, I thought, as I piled comfort food into a paper box to be weighed at the register. Will comfort food remind Will of his childhood? Ha! Probably not. I realized that I wish I could eat like Will. I wish someone would make me all that delicious, healthy food. I'd probably feel better and lose those last few pounds. I need a nutritionist, someone who will plan my meals and balance out my protein to grain to carb intake. Why don't I take better care of myself? The thoughts start spiraling. You are so lazy. Why can't you just eat better? What is wrong with you? Look around. There's a reason the junk food line is the shortest. This food is terrible for you. If only I had something better. And then it hit me. That delicious, healthy food I'd been up at 5 preparing for my kids, I had never once, until that moment, considered allowing myself to eat any of it. Crazy, right? I had been berating myself for my unhealthy eating habits, but my only solution so far had been searching under the Healthy tab on Seamless, so virtuous, I know, or looking for the best worst option in a fast food line. All the while, I had actually been going food shopping for healthy food week after week and then actually preparing it each day, just not for myself, for my kids. Every day I was greeted with a refrigerator full of healthy food. Every day I didn't eat it, and God help my husband if he touched it. That food was for the baby. But why? Why wasn't I allowing myself to partake in this nutritious food? What would happen if I treated myself with the same love, care, and nurturing that I lavished on my children each day? Does good parenting always mean putting our kids first? I know this question, as simple as it sounds, will be eerily familiar to the other moms out there. Mothers today take an almost perverse pride in how much we do for our kids. One can see it in nearly every single modern parenting debate. If you co-sleep, it's because you can't stand to be away from your baby and don't care if your own sleep is interrupted as long as the little one is content. If you don't, it's because you want to foster your child's independence and bestow on her the path to a life of good sleeping habits. If you work, it's because you want to show your kids what it means to be an independent woman who contributes financially to the family and has a life outside the home. If you stay at home, it's because you care more about your family than any job, and being with the children is your top priority. Choices, sacrifices, and justifications to be sure, but any choice you make is always tinged with the underlying fear of messing everything up. And let's remember, all of it is done out of one singular feeling: total and unconditional love for your children. Love for our offspring, that's what we as parents have in common, isn't it? But how does that love influence our happiness? Are we happier because we're parents? There are conflicting studies on this front. In 2013, a British study from Open University, dubbed the Enduring Love Project, declared childless couples were happier than those with children. It reported that mothers are more negative about relationship quality, relationship with partner, relationship maintenance, and happiness with their relationship or partner than childless women are. There's also the oft-cited 2004 study conducted by Nobel Prize winner Dr. Daniel Kahneman of 909 working Texas mothers that showed childcare as ranking 16th of 19 in pleasurable activities. Childcare came in behind other daily responsibilities, including cooking, watching TV, and socializing with coworkers. Another study, In Defense of Parenthood, published in 2013 in Psychological Science, shows men with children were happier than men without kids. But here's the kicker. Having children did not make women any happier than their childless counterparts. It's easy to jump to the conclusion that, at least for some parents, an overinvestment in our children is at least in part contributing to the seeming dissatisfaction. The logical conclusion might be to stop being so emotionally, physically, and financially invested in your children, and you'll find more time for you, and as a result, you'll be happier. But let me get this out of the way right up front. I don't buy it. On the contrary, my children have made me happier than I ever thought possible. There are moments I think my heart will actually explode with love for them. There are times when we stare into each other's eyes and I actually feel like our hearts are speaking to each other. When they are not physically near me, my heart aches for them. Sometimes when I put them to bed at night, at the same time that I breathe a sigh of relief, the tears start falling because I'm sad at the thought of another day of their precious, too short childhood gone. I know I'm not alone in these feelings. My circle of mom friends is wide, partly because of the flexibility afforded to me by my employer. I'm a full-time working mother who also has the ability to attend baby music, gym, ballet, and swimming classes, playgroup, school drop-off, playdates, and more. As a result, I'm friendly not only with mothers whose circumstances are similar to my own, but also with working moms who work long hours, stay-at-home moms with help and those without, moms with husbands who work late, and single moms going at it alone. I also have one child with special needs. My son, Will, has Down syndrome, and one without. And as such, I have a foot in each of those worlds too. Befriending mothers in various situations has given me firsthand knowledge that my passionate love for my kids is, well, pretty universal and not at all unique. It also assures me that I'm not alone in feeling overwhelmed to the point of near panic attacks by the massive responsibility of someone else's, in my case, two other someone's, well-being. And then there's the guilt. It's all-consuming and it's constant. Every bedtime story not read, every enrichment class not enrolled in, every vegetable on the toddler's plate that goes uneaten is a source of stress. But the evidence is far from conclusive when it comes to declaring kids the source of unhappiness. That Open University study from 2013 that showed childless couples were happier than those with children, it also showed mothers were the happiest group of all. And a 2013 study, Parents Reap What They Sow, Child Centrism and Parental Well-Being from Social, Psychological, and Personality Science, concluded that, quote, contrary to popular belief, more child-centric parents reported deriving more happiness and meaning from parenthood, end quote. In other words, the tendency for parents to prioritize their children's well-being above their own wasn't necessarily a bad thing, or at the very least, it doesn't apply across the board. This seems to be the camp I, and the women I know, fall into, a life that is both generally happy and child-centric, but coupled with feelings of self-doubt and a touch of longing for a life that is less anxiety-filled. In Jennifer Senior's best-selling book, All Joy and No Fun, The Paradox of Modern Parenthood, she turned the tide of the parenting discussion by asking what effect children have on their parents. Until Senior's book, the exploration of the parent-child relationship had been nearly exclusively focused on what effect parents had on their kids. By observing and examining parenting groups and specific families, Senior quite correctly concludes that having kids is always a game changer for your marriage, your friendships, your professional life. There's also the issue of categorization of parenting styles, which is a relatively new phenomenon. There's the helicopter mom who hovers too close, the tiger mom who only accepts total and complete excellence, the attachment parent who responds immediately to every need of the child, the free-range parent who encourages independence from a young age. While each one has its passionate supporters and detractors, there's no doubt that each one has positive traits. After all, if you could raise your child to succeed academically while being independent yet simultaneously knowing he or she can call you and trust that you'll be there at a moment's notice, why wouldn't you? But with all the label parenting comes the pressure as a mother to decide which camp you belong to, rather than just simply to parent. But no matter which parenting discipline you follow, even if you follow none at all, there's a common theme that seems to unite all of us. We're all determined to do whatever it takes to make our kids happy, healthy, to give them a leg up in the world. We're so hell-bent on this that we'll get up at 5 a.m. to cook their organic couscous. We'll schlep them to karate lessons on Saturday morning instead of going to the gym ourselves. We'll let them sleep in our beds, even if we're up tossing and turning all night. But with all this focusing on our child's wants and needs, where do our needs fit in? Are we dooming ourselves to a lifetime, well, maybe a decade or two, of skipped meals, missed workouts, and sleepless nights? There's got to be a better way. The baby diet. But back to my lunchtime cafeteria revelation. That fateful day, as hectic, harried, and hungry as it was not an aberration. It was the norm. I never ate breakfast. My days consisted of raiding the ABC News cafeteria for an early lunch, maybe wolfing down a snack in the afternoon, likely followed by standing in front of the refrigerator when I got home, looking for anything to tide me over until the inevitable takeout order once the kids were in bed. And I wondered why I couldn't lose the last of that baby weight. Research from the University of Michigan shows that mothers have a higher body mass index than non-mothers and consume more calories in a day than childless women. The result? Parents are more apt to not take good care of their health at a time when they really need to be modeling healthy behavior for their children. The answer to healthier eating suddenly seems so obvious. If I could eat the same foods I was feeding my toddler, in effect, stop putting my own needs behind his, I would be well on my way to changing my abysmal eating habits. And at the same time, I'd be modeling better eating for Addie, my 3-year-old picky eater. I would put myself on the baby's diet. I started talking with New York-based nutritionist Nicolette Pace, who explained to me that babies have a natural rhythm when it comes to eating that we lose at some point as we grow. We need to look to our babies for the answer, she said. Pace points out that we used to be a 9-to-5 workday society. Now, she said, it's more like 5 to 9. If we follow our children's rhythms, not just in what they eat, but when and why, she says, we can get back to a schedule that will help our bodies find their optimal weight. A light bulb went off. That was it exactly. My day started at 5 with those fateful meal preparations. Then came 2 hours of childcare before heading to my office for another 8. Then it was time to head home for another 3 hours of childcare, dinner, bath, books, bed, before almost collapsing from physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion at 9 p.m., 5 to 9. That was my day. We prioritize everything above eating, Pace said. But our babies, if they're hungry, will move hell and high water to make sure they're fed. As adults, she added, we rarely do the same for ourselves. I flash back to the scene in my kitchen on a typical morning. I'm hell-bent on preparing a healthy breakfast and making sure the kids eat it because I believe, scratch that, I know, what they eat in the morning will set the tone for the rest of their day. I'm so tied to this belief, in fact, that I try, and often fail, but do try, to have them eat their foods in a particular order. So if, for example, breakfast consists of fruit, yogurt, and a piece of toast with butter, I will do my best to serve it in that order, with the buttered toast coming last. I do it so they'll eat the healthier food while they're the hungriest, and so that they won't fill up on the toast and leave the healthy stuff on the plate. I'm not sure if I read this somewhere or just made it up, but it's become gospel in my house. Healthy foods first. Clearly, I have put thought into this. Meanwhile, I rarely eat breakfast myself. That sinks in. I'm so concerned with what my kids are eating for breakfast so that it will set the wheels in motion for a healthy day that I actually serve the foods in a particular order. And I don't even bother putting one morsel in my own mouth. Pace said not skipping meals is one of the baby behaviors that adults could learn the most from. Another, pushing food away when we're no longer hungry. Just as Will had done with his eggs that fateful morning. Babies listen to their own bodies and understand when they are full, and then they stop. This is another behavior I struggle with. Just the other day, my husband Ryan and I were eating sandwiches from our favorite place on the Upper East Side. My go-to is a total calorie bomb, an Italian hero with mayonnaise. That's in addition to the oil and vinegar that comes with it. There are several kinds of meats and cheese involved. It's delicious. And it's huge. I could easily stop eating after half. Easily. After I polished off the first half of my hero, I said to Ryan, with the other half of the sandwich sitting in front of me, I'm having a dilemma. I'm not hungry anymore, but I really, really want to eat the rest of this sandwich. It's amazing. Or should I put it away? Well, he said, if you put it away, you know you'll never end up eating it because the bread will go soggy. So you'll just end up throwing it out. That was all I needed to hear. On an already full stomach, I ate another half of an Italian hero. Controlling portions and knowing what our stomachs can handle is key, said Pace. A newborn stomach is about the size of a cherry, she said. It grows as they grow, and by adulthood, our stomachs are about the size of a softball. That hero was definitely bigger than a softball. It was maybe 2.5 softballs. And what followed was feeling not only uncomfortably full, but uncomfortably guilty. It's a feeling we moms know all too well. And so, armed with this knowledge from nutritionist Pace and a righteous fire in my belly, the baby diet experiment began, the week of Thanksgiving no less, when diet pitfalls are everywhere. I decided I'd eat what my toddler ate when he ate, and I treat my own menu with the same care I lavished on his plate every day. The food was pretty simple. Day 1 breakfast: 1 scrambled egg and Greek yogurt. Lunch: 3 chicken nuggets and peas. Snack: grapes and crackers and hummus. Dinner: chicken veggie stir fry. Day 2 breakfast: half a bagel thin with hummus and avocado. Lunch: chicken stir fry, veggies and rice. Snack: Greek yogurt. Dinner: avocado, Mexican cheese wrap. Day 3 breakfast: oatmeal with fruit and toast with hummus. Lunch: couscous and turkey and a cheese mini wrap. Snack: cheese and crackers. Dinner: turkey stuffing and green beans. Day 4 breakfast: bacon, egg, and cheese. Snack: yogurt. Lunch/dinner: turkey stuffing, veggies, dinner roll, cranberry relish. The food was delicious. It was way more satisfying than the junk I'd been fueling myself with, so I actually ate less. I saved some money because though I was feeding both of us good quality food, it was still cheaper than the company cafeteria or greasy takeout. In total, I lost more than 2 pounds in 4 days on the baby diet. I was never hungry, had more energy, and ate more well-balanced meals than I would have eaten had I not been mimicking my toddler's diet. I was intrigued. It was such a revelation that I wrote up the story of my experiment for my day at ABC News. I hit publish, I patted myself on the back for half a second, and then I moved on to the next story. But my article started getting a lot of likes. People were sharing it widely online. What I will keep in mind about this article is that we as adults tend to forget about eating healthy, and that what I plan to do moving forward is ask myself, would I allow my child to eat what I'm eating, said one. It really works, said another. It was clear that this baby diet, and more significantly, the concept that it was okay for moms to prioritize their own needs and desires, was really resonating with moms and others who were reading this story. Then one of the senior producers from Good Morning America called me up and asked if we could turn it into a segment. I work at ABC News, but in the digital division. Once in a while, my stories for the website get turned into TV segments. Sometimes I'm the correspondent, but in this case I would be the subject. But to get this kind of reaction to what I thought was a run-of-the-mill article was pretty exciting. We shot the segment, and once the show aired, right before Christmas, I got a tremendous amount of feedback from viewers. It was mostly positive, with a few detractors who pointed out that not everyone has the means to feed their children in a similar fashion, let alone themselves. I got it. But I hope the takeaway, which was my main revelation in trying this experiment, was this: that moms take so much care to give their kids the very best of everything that we don't even think about doing the same for ourselves. I don't mean that we think about it and then decide not to do it because of time or resources. I mean, we literally never even think about treating ourselves with the love and care we show our kids every day. Or at least I didn't. And it was never clearer to me than the moment I was searching everywhere to find true nourishment, only to discover it in my refrigerator, where it had been all along. Staying the course. Adopting the baby diet for a few days, even over Thanksgiving, was actually much easier than making similar changes in the long term. I keep going back to the idea that I work really, really hard. I do everything I'm supposed to do in life and much more. Don't I deserve a little lukewarm cafeteria lasagna now and then? I laugh when I catch myself falling into this trap because it's so silly. The food I was eating was technically comfort food, but it wasn't really a treat. It might have been momentarily delicious, but it wasn't making me feel good. And it wasn't helping me fuel my busy life either. The days I've managed to adopt the baby diet since that Thanksgiving experiment prove something I already knew to be true. If I eat better, I am more productive. If I am more productive, I'm happier. Therefore, eating better leads to more happiness, which is exactly what I'm trying to achieve. But the trouble is, I keep failing at this diet thing, and then I feel like a failure, which makes me terribly unhappy. There are weeks and months when I'm able to adopt Will's diet for a day or two here or there, but eventually I don't plan well, end up skipping breakfast, or forget my lunch on the kitchen counter, and it's back to Chipotle I go. I decide I need to start smaller. Instead of jumping back into the baby diet whole hog, I'll instead eat for breakfast each day what I serve the kids. After all, if breakfast sets the tone for the whole day, then at the very least I should make better decisions if I've had a healthy start. So I go to the grocery store on a Sunday to shop for the week. I'm ruthless. I make my decisions on what to buy based solely on what kinds of foods I will feed Will and what I would at least like for Addie to eat, keeping in mind that she'll most likely eat peanut butter sandwiches. Turkey bacon, organic, free-range eggs, fresh berries, plain Greek yogurt with honey and granola become staples. The first few days went great. Each day, Will and I ate exactly the same thing for breakfast and sometimes, but not always, ate the same thing for lunch and dinner. At minimum, Addie was starting the day healthy. And again, the results were immediate and gratifying. A 2-pound weight loss in the first 5 days. This thing might actually work. Yet try as I might, there were still those mornings I didn't have time to pack myself a lunch. but I tried not to fall into a shame spiral when that happened.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?